Good morning, myself Yashvi Patel, and I will be presenting a comprehensive political economy analysis of India, the world's fifth largest economy. This presentation will examine India's institutional framework, economic performance, and development challenges through multiple analytical lenses, including McKinsey's country analysis framework, variety of capitalism theory, and Rostow's development model. We will conclude with actionable policy recommendations to enhance India's prosperity trajectory. Introduction to India's economy. India represents one of the most compelling growth stories among emerging markets with a $3.7 trillion GDP and 1.4 billion people. It is experiencing a demographic dividend with a median age of just 28.4 years. The economy has transformed from agriculture dominated to service led, though this sectoral shift has not created commensurate employment. While showing 6 to 7% annual growth pre pandemic, India faces structural challenges including severe income inequality, infrastructure gaps requiring $1.4 trillion investment by 2025, and political hurdles that rank it 136th in business startup ease. Political factors influencing business. India's federal parliamentary democracy creates a complex business environment. The BJP led government since 2014 has implemented significant reforms like the goods and services tax and production linked incentives, improving the doing business rank from 142nd to 63rd. However, persistent challenges include moderate corruption, regulatory unpredictability across states, and ongoing tensions between centralization and federalism. The political stability score of 3.5 out of 10 from the Global Economy Index reflects risk from communal tensions and protectionist tendencies that occasionally surface in trade policy. Economic institutions, formal versus informal. The institutional duality is striking. While the formal sector contributes 50% of GDP, it employs just 10% of workers. Banking penetration has improved to 80% through Jan Dhan accounts, yet tax compliance remains at just 6%. The recent consolidation of 29 labor laws into four codes represents progress, but implementation across 28 states remain uneven. This institutional fragmentation creates what economists call the missing middle, few medium sized enterprises bridging the gap between informal micro businesses and large conglomerates. Varieties of capitalism, liberal market economic characteristics. India predominantly exhibits liberal market economy traits with decentralized wage bargaining and strong equity markets. However, family owned conglomerates like Tata and Reliance display coordinated market economy features through long term stakeholder coordination. The R&D expenditure at 0.7% of GDP, just one third the global average, reflects weak industry academia linkages. This hybrid model creates efficiency in IT services but hampers manufacturing competitiveness against East Asian CMEs. Extractive versus inclusive institutions. India's institutional evolution reflects its colonial legacy. The British built railways for extraction now serve inclusive development, while post 1991 reforms reduced license Raj extractivism, elite capture persist as seen in 79th rank of property rights protection. The Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile Trinity demonstrates digital inclusion reaching 800 million beneficiaries, yet physical infrastructure gaps maintain spatial inequalities. This institutional duality explains why India produces world class tech CEOs while 60% of construction workers remain informal. World Bank Doing Business Indicators. The Doing Business trajectory reveals reform momentum. Startup time reduced from 29 to 18 days since 2014. However, registering property still takes 58 days due to fragmented land records across 6,000 jurisdictions. The insolvency resolution paradox is notable. While taking just 1.6 years, the 26% recovery rate reflects weak contract enforcement. This metrics explain why India attracts FDIs in digital sectors but struggles in manufacturing beyond tariff protected sectors. Trading economics analysis. Macroeconomic indicators show resilience with $600 billion forex reserves, yet structural vulnerabilities persist. Food inflation volatility stems from supply chain inefficiencies. 40% of produce rots before reaching markets. The 7 to 8% urban unemployment masks deeper underemployment. 45% of graduates are unemployable in knowledge sectors according to Aspiring Minds data. The current account deficit remains manageable but exposes energy security risk as 85% of oil is imported. OEC trade profile. India's $1.2 trillion trade footprint reveals structural gaps, while refined petroleum exports reflects processing capacity. Crude oil imports highlight energy dependence. The pharmaceutical exports showcase capabilities, but electronic imports reveal manufacturing deficits. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership opt out reflects protectionist instincts contrasting with new free trade agreements like the UAE Pact targeting $100 billion bilateral trade. Make in India has boosted manufacturing exports by 15% compound annual growth rate. Yet the share in global exports remains stagnant at 1.6%. Ranking 101st in prosperity, India's paradox emerges: strong entrepreneurship coexists with poor health. Governance rank exceeds expectations but hides regional variations. Southern states outperform Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh by 30 percentile points. Safety concerns stem from 35% gender violence prevalence. The personal freedom decline raises questions about democratic backsliding even as digital freedom expands through UPI and ONDC platforms. India's development trajectory aligns partially with Rosto. The 1991 reforms marked takeoff, but the drive to maturity remains incomplete. Consumption patterns reveal duality: 70% discretionary spending in urban areas contrast with 60% rural expenditure on essentials. The missing link is manufacturing employment services grew without labor absorption, unlike East Asian models. Without addressing this, India risks entering mass consumption with just 300 million participants rather than the full demographic dividend cohort. Comparative analysis: India versus China. The China comparison reveals strategic choices. India's services led growth created IT giants but left manufacturing at 14% GDP versus China's 27%. Human capital gaps are stark: 6.5 mean schooling years versus China's 8.1. However, India's federal democracy provides resilience against shocks, evidenced during the 2008 crisis when consumption cushioned export. The critical divergence is in infrastructure. China invested 8 to 10% GDP for decades while India struggles at 5%, creating a $1.4 trillion gap according to McKinsey estimates. Prosperity improvement recommendations. Three transformative reforms could accelerate prosperity. First, operationalizing the new labor codes could formalize 50 million jobs by 2030. Second is increasing education spending to 6% GDP with German style vocational training could address the 5% skill workforce crisis. Third is reduce agriculture employment share from 43% to 20% via productivity. Targeted PLI schemes show promise. Mobile manufacturing grew from 2 to 22 factories since 2014 but needs scaling across 14 priority sectors. Key challenges. The demographic dividend risk become a crisis. 90 million non-farm jobs are needed by 2030, yet formal sector creation lags at 4 million annually. Climate vulnerability is acute. Seventh most affected faces $35 billion annual losses from extreme weather. The financial sector's twin balance sheet problem persists with 8% NPAs, constraining credit flow. Most critically, the female labor force participation at 23% represents both a challenge and untapped potential worth $770 billion to GDP. Conclusion. In conclusion, India stands at an inflection point. Its democratic institutions provide resilience but slow decision making. The services sector success must now translate into manufacturing and human capital development. With second generation reforms in land, labor, and capital markets, India could achieve 7% sustained growth to become $10 trillion economy by 2035. However, this requires addressing the paradox of excellence in pockets amidst systemic inefficiencies, the space program versus primary healthcare dichotomy. The window for demographic dividend is finite. The next decade will determine whether India becomes an advanced economy or remains perpetually emerging. This analysis demonstrates that institutional quality improvements could add 2 percentage points to India's growth potential. The comparative lesson is clear. Countries like South Korea transformed through consistent manufacturing policy, whereas India's sectoral imbalance require correction. Future research should examine how federal competition among Indian states could accelerate reforms, building on the Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu success models. Thank you for your attention.